I'm going to show you why Tesla stock will be worth at least $5,000 a share in 2026 and very well could be more than $20,000 a share in 2026. Are you ready? Let's go. We're starting with 2023. This is about halfway between now and 2026. The most important detail in this spreadsheet is that 2.5 million units for Tesla Model 3 and Model Y in 2023. Keep in mind, this chart is no Robotaxi revenue at all. This is just vehicle sales and energy sales. And you can see there, Model 3 and Model Y having 2.5 million units sold in 2023. That might seem a little aggressive. Let's talk about that. Listen to what Elon Musk said in the Q1 investor call.
When it comes to Model Y, we think Model Y will be the best-selling car or vehicle of any kind in the world, probably next year. I'm not 100% certain next year, but I think it's quite likely. I'd say more likely than not that in 2022, Model Y is the best-selling car or truck of any kind in the world.
Elon said that he expected Model Y to be the best-selling car in the world in 2022. He later clarified he was referring to the revenue because the Model Y is a fairly high-priced vehicle. The best-selling vehicle by unit volume in the world has been the Toyota Corolla, which costs a lot less money than the Model Y. So if Tesla sells more than half as many Model Ys as Toyota sells Corollas in 2022, by revenue, Model Y will be the biggest vehicle, and that's 2022. But by 2023, they're shooting for by unit volume, which would mean, since the Corolla sells about 1.3, 1.4 million vehicles a year, Tesla is shooting for 1.5 million Model Ys in 2023. The factory production levels for Model Y to get to 1.5 million vehicles in 2023 is not a big stretch. We're looking at 250,000 plus in Fremont. We're looking at 250,000 plus in Shanghai. The two of those together should easily exceed 500,000 vehicles and might get to 600,000 vehicles by 2023 if they don't get there by 2022. Then you add in Berlin and Texas. They've designed Berlin and Texas. Seems like they've designed them to get to 1 million vehicles a year each out of Texas and Berlin. There are 8 gigapresses for Model Y in Berlin. Each gigapress is designed to produce 1,000 pieces a day, roughly. There's a gigapress for the front, there's a gigapress for the rear, so you figure there's 4 vehicles being produced by those gigapresses. If you have 4,000 gigapress castings made a day, and they only operate 250 days a year out of 365, you get to 1 million vehicles a year from Tesla's factory in Berlin and the same thing in Texas. 1 million each from Berlin and Texas. That would be 2.5 or 2.6 million Model Ys, just Model Y, not even Model 3. It would be 2.6 million Model Ys. If you figure they haven't fully ramped by 2023, which I think is pessimistic, but let's go there. If you figure they haven't fully ramped yet, then they get 500,000 out of Giga Berlin, 500,000 Model Ys out of Giga Texas, and 500,000 or 600,000 total out of Shanghai and Fremont, and you're at over 1.5 million vehicles in 2023. I think Tesla's heading for 2.5, 2.6, maybe close to 3 million Model Ys out of the factories where they're producing Model Ys by 2023. So 1.5 million Model Ys for 2023 is pretty conservative. When you figure it's not just Model Ys, but also Model 3s, if they make 1.5 million Model Ys, it's reasonable to predict they will make 1 million Model 3s. That's a total of 2.5 million of those vehicles, and that plays into what is the largest number. Model 3 and Model Y together account for the largest number in terms of profit on the entire sheet, $37.5 billion. That is a big driver of Tesla's total profit for the year 2023. Very clear already that Model 3 and Model Y are the most important vehicles that Tesla produces. It's not just the Model 3 and the Model Y. It's not just vehicles, though. You can also see here another really important number on the sheet is Megapack. Producing Megapacks in volume generates $25 billion in profit. That is the second largest profit number on the sheet. after the Model 3 and Model Y profit. A couple of other notes. In this model for 2023, I have very limited production of the 2023 Tesla Compact. It's only $700 million in revenue. It's effectively trivial, not very important for the results of this model. This model for 2023 is driven by Model 3 and Model Y and Megapack, and everything else is pretty small. This model comes up with Tesla using 377 gigawatt hours of battery cells. I think this is a low number. I think it's very likely that Tesla will actually get more than this. If you look at CATL's production plans for lithium iron phosphate cells, if you look at Tesla's plans for producing high nickel cells, you add that together plus Panasonic and LG Chem, seems to me very likely Tesla reaches at least 400 gigawatt hours in 2023. So while these numbers seem aggressive to some people, I think these numbers are actually conservative, and we're going to see even larger numbers than what you see here. Should also mention really quick, Cybertruck doesn't play a huge part here. $3.7 billion in revenue. It's 1/10 of the revenue from Model 3 and Model Y because they're producing 1/10 as many vehicles. Right now, we don't see any plans for Cybertruck to scale beyond 250,000, maybe 300,000 vehicles a year. If Cybertruck scales more and they produce more, great. I don't expect Cybertruck to achieve much more than 250,000 vehicles by that point. And Semi, you can see right below that is $2 billion. Not a huge number, not a huge volume of production yet. So with these numbers, we see Tesla reaching gross profit of $74 billion. Net profit, when you figure out that there's going to be some other costs taken out, you get to a net profit in the ballpark of $50 billion. With a market cap using a price earnings ratio of 60, which is reasonable when you consider this is a fast growing company that's early in its growth curve, you get to a market cap of $3 trillion and a share price of over $3,000 a share. That's for 2023. That is the stepping stone for where we're going in 2026. I should also mention this number is well below where I have predicted Tesla will be in 2023. I'm expecting Tesla to produce 800,000 to 900,000 vehicles in 2021, 2 million vehicles in 2022, and potentially 5 million vehicles in 2023. So this is selling Tesla short, far from where I think they might get to. Most people who are looking at this expect Tesla to achieve maybe 900,000 vehicles this year. Drew Baglino said they were going to get more than double batteries from their suppliers for 2022 compared to 2021.
Our request to our strategic partners for cell supply is please supply us with as much as you possibly can.
Specific to that, we're on track to more than double the supplier capacity over the next 13.
More than double. And Tesla will have a much larger supply of its own battery cells in 2022. So more than double battery supplies, increasing their own production of battery cells. Very reasonable to see Tesla more than doubling from 900,000 in 2021 to somewhere in 2022 in the ballpark of 2 million. Well, if they're more than doubling from 2021 to 2022, then even doubling from 2022 from 2 million would get you to 4 million vehicles. So this is a very conservative estimate of Tesla's vehicle production and deliveries in 2023 at only 3 million vehicles delivered. The big driver of Tesla's growth going forward beyond this, though, is the Compact. And by limiting the Compact to only 100,000 units in 2023, it doesn't have much impact. What we're going to see going forward to 2026, 3 years later, is a fully ramped Tesla Compact out of multiple factories. And that's a big driver of where this is going. So let's take a look at 2026, and this is my optimistic scenario for 2026. I'm going to show you some other scenarios shortly that are less optimistic. This scenario includes both 2 terawatt hours of batteries and Robotaxi. You can see two big drivers here are 5 million Model 3s and Model Ys in 2026 and 12 million compacts. I think there's a chance we're going to see less growth in Model 3, Model Y, and more growth in compact. But regardless, these are huge numbers. 12 million compacts in 2026, 5 million Model 3s and Ys in 2026, and a total of 19 million vehicles in 2026. Now, Elon said they were shooting for 20 million vehicles in 2030, maybe a little earlier, but I'm going to explain to you why this makes complete sense. Just looking really quickly around the graph, you can see here about 2 gigawatt hours of total battery consumption. This is the battery column here. Here's the revenue numbers. You get to total revenue of $1.8 trillion in revenue, $420 billion in revenue on the compact, with $105 billion in profit on that vehicle, assuming a fairly reasonable gross margin. We see Models 3 and Y, $275 billion in revenue and 60-some billion dollars in profit. Again, reasonable gross margin. This is gross margin. This is not net profit. This is gross profit. The rest of the vehicles together don't add up to nearly as much as Model 3 and Y together, so I include them on the chart. They're not nearly as important. We get energy. Megapack is, again, the big driver of revenue and profit, with $250 billion in revenue and $125 billion in profit. You get total vehicle profit of $220 billion. You get total energy profit of $144 billion. The biggest driver in this model is robotaxis. This is where I say Tesla builds a fleet of 10 million compact robotaxis that they own. Maybe some of their Model 3s and Model Ys that came off lease, but largely it's going to be compacts that Tesla puts in its own fleet. They make $600 billion in revenue and $480 billion of profit because it's a very, very profitable business. And this leads to a total gross profits of $843 billion. Following that, you get net profit of $590 billion. Taking market cap with a price earnings ratio of 40, you see a market cap of $23 to $24 trillion and a share price over $23,000 a share. So before we get into the other models, let's go into why I think this isn't crazy. First of all, vehicle production. You can see I've got the compact production at 12 million units and the Model 3 and Y production at 5 million units. Let's start with Model 3 and Model Y, and really all the other vehicles together add up to in the ballpark of 6 million vehicles. We've got the existing vehicle factories at Fremont, California and Shanghai. Got the factories that are being built now in Berlin and Texas. What I expect to happen with those factories is that Berlin will produce 1.5 to 2 million vehicles per year by 2026, probably earlier than that. Texas will produce at least 2 million vehicles between Model 3, Model Y, and Cybertruck, and some semi maybe or something along those lines. In this particular model, I have minivans, minibus, minivans. They don't add up to a lot. They're not a big player in the story, but that's there. Then Fremont should be about 750,000 vehicles. Shanghai should be about 750,000 vehicles. So you get 1.5 billion from Fremont and Shanghai total. You get over 2 million from Texas. Add 2.5 million from Texas to 1.5 million from Shanghai and Fremont. You get 4 million. Take another 2 million from Berlin. You're at 6 million vehicles. Then you add in the compact. My expectation for the Tesla compact, and this is my aggressive expectation, right, is that the compact factories will produce 4 million vehicles a year each, and they will build 3 of them. One in China, one in Texas, one somewhere in Europe. Maybe they'll only produce 3 million vehicles a year if you take that approach, then add a 4th gigafactory in either the United Kingdom or, my guess, Japan, to produce 4 factories doing 3 million vehicles each. You still get 12 million compacts produced a year. We're looking at a total of 2 terawatt hours of batteries in 2026. That does not seem like a big stretch to me. Tesla suppliers are ramping up their production. CATL is aiming for 1.2 terawatt hours by 2025, if I'm not mistaken. Tesla will be ramping up their battery factories very fast. Between Tesla, CATL, Panasonic, and LG Chem, 2 terawatt hours is completely within reach for Tesla in terms of their production of vehicles and energy products. But the big driver in the story is Tesla Robotaxis. This is extreme. This is where the extreme optimism comes from. Will Tesla get to 10 million robotaxis in 2026? Maybe that's a stretch. I think it's realistic. I think Tesla delivers the first robotaxi sometime by the end of 2022, maybe in 2023. Once they have the first robotaxi running, it only makes sense for Tesla to produce them in high volumes and put them in their own fleet. And getting to 10 million vehicles in the fleet is not going to be that hard, especially if they ramp those Tesla compact factories. Now, one little detail here where I'm probably being overly aggressive is I have Tesla having a fleet of 10 million robotaxis, and I still have them producing 19 million vehicles and selling those 19 million vehicles. So really, you might want to take off a big chunk of money from, say, the compact revenue and profit lines. Knock that down from $100 billion to $50 billion in profit. that does not have a meaningful impact on gross profit. It takes it to 800 billion. It takes net profit down a little bit to 550 billion. It really doesn't have a big effect on the ultimate share price. Maybe that knocks the share price down to 22,000, but it doesn't take it below $20,000 a share. And I should say with 10 million robotaxis, this is still in the early days of the robotaxi world. They're still making more than $1 a mile on the robotaxi rides, and they're making huge, huge profits. You can see that this $480 billion of profit from robotaxi is a huge, huge driver of these numbers for 2026. So let's look at what happens when we take Robotaxi out of the model. This is the same model taking Robotaxi out. Just want to note really quick at the bottom left there, you can see I've broken out where I see the chemistries. At ballpark 1.2 terawatt hours of batteries from lithium iron phosphate, 400 gigawatt hours from high nickel chemistry, and a little less than 400 gigawatt hours from nickel manganese chemistry. These are ballpark numbers. My guess would be that LFP might be a little lower, practically speaking. High nickel and nickel manganese might be a little higher. Really hard to say where that goes, but I just wanted to share that with you so you get a sense of where the batteries are going, what type of batteries are being used, and where they're going. Lithium iron phosphate batteries are going into the Tesla Compact, and they're going into Megapack. The high nickel cells are going in Cybertruck, they're going in Semi, and they're going in models S and X. And the nickel manganese cells are going in just about everything else. Everything else is pretty much the same as the last model, except the Robotaxi line is gone. So gross profit in the yellow is down to $360 billion. Net profit is down to $250 million. Market cap is down to $10 trillion. And we have a Tesla share price of $10,000 a share. That's not terrible. And again, this is still an optimistic scenario, right? Because we still have high production of vehicles and we have a lot of batteries. So I want to show you one alternative scenario where we get more pessimistic. We say, wait a minute, maybe Tesla won't achieve as much as they say in terms of vehicle production. We're going to take out Robotaxi and we're going to reduce production of vehicles and grid storage devices, etc. And let's see where that takes us. So this is the pessimistic scenario. You can see total vehicles is down to 12 million vehicles in 2026 instead of 19 million vehicles. See, the Compact is down to 8 million vehicles instead of 12 million. Models 3 and Y are down to 4 million vehicles. I've adjusted pricing. I've adjusted some other things. In this pessimistic model, Tesla only gets 1 terawatt hours of batteries to play with instead of 2 terawatt hours of batteries. So that's half as many batteries that they can use. Not surprisingly, the share price and market cap are cut in half. They're down to $5 trillion and $5,000 a share, about half of where we were in the last model because we cut everything down by about half. I also lowered some selling prices in the model. If you go back and look at the spreadsheets, I lowered some pricing a little bit. So now Compact is only producing $60 billion in profit. Models 3 and Y are only producing $50 billion in profit. And Megapack is only producing $50 billion of profit, gross profit. You end up with a total gross profit less than $200 billion based on $640 billion in revenue, net profit of over $100 billion still, and you using a price earnings ratio of 40. Now here, I think we might use a higher price earnings ratio because this means we haven't seen as much growth. I think that once we get to 2026, if we hit the 2 terawatt hours of battery production, if we're seeing Robotaxi going like crazy, we may start bending back the curve. Here, we're not bending back the curve yet. The growth is still going well. There's still a lot of room for growth. So there's a lot of potential for Tesla growth to continue growing a lot longer than this. Nevertheless, we've got $5 trillion in market cap and a $5,000 share price in 2026 in what I consider a very pessimistic scenario. And you can push hard and you can knock things down more. It's really hard to get the share price below, say, $3,000 a share in 2026. And I don't think it's even rational to consider that. You basically have to get to the point where you say Tesla's going to stop growing. And you have to explain why Tesla's going to stop growing. And I haven't seen an explanation yet of why Tesla would stop growing. They are making extremely competitive vehicles that are better built than the other vehicles that are out there. Tesla is producing its vehicles at lower cost. It's improving its manufacturing. It's getting its batteries for less cost. It is doing so many things right. And you put all this together, and this is with zero Robotaxi. This is assuming that they don't succeed at all in getting robotaxis on the road at all by 2026, which I think is an extremely pessimistic scenario. I think there's a really strong chance we're going to see full self-driving actually available by the end of 2021, and we're going to see robotaxis sometime in 2022. Once those robotaxis hit, the model's crazy. It's just going to take off because your costs fall through the floor for providing rides. As you expand robotaxis, you're going to start at $2 a mile, let's say, which is still undercutting Uber and Lyft. But even at $1.50 a mile, the market for robotaxis is just huge. And even at $1 a mile, robotaxis are extremely profitable. So this is looking like a really good plan for the future. Hey, pessimistic scenario, Tesla only makes it to $5,000 a share in 2026. If you backtrack that and you say, well, what is Tesla worth in 2021? If its share price in 2026, at the end of 2026, let's say, is going to be $5,000 a share. Well, what would you pay for an asset that's going to be worth $5,000 a share in 2026? I think you'd pay a lot. I think you'd pay at least half of that, $2,500 a share. So right now, Tesla shares are trading around $600 or $700 a share when they should be trading at $2,500 a share or higher. This is the pessimistic scenario. What if I'm right and robotaxis are delivered in high volume and they actually produce close to 20 million vehicles in 2026? You might think it's crazy, but there's a chance it's going to happen. How much does that increase the value of the stock knowing the probability of that is out there? Even a small probability. I think it's at least a 50-50 shot that Tesla gets to over $20,000 a share in 2026. And there's another sweetener. Right now, Tesla's share price is being held down by negative media and negative Wall Street perceptions of the company. Once Tesla starts knocking off the other big dogs, and Tesla becomes the largest volume producer of vehicles in the world, and Tesla starts succeeding in energy beyond anybody's expectation, and Tesla's doing AI, and keep in mind, I haven't even included robotics in my model. What if they do something beyond self-driving cars with robots before 2026? Lots of potential here for Tesla to make ridiculous money. But now suppose you're on Wall Street, and one of the things that drives the way Wall Streeters think is they look for the biggest player in the industry and they say, this is the big dog. Think about the way they talk about Tesla now. While Tesla's going to have trouble going up against Toyota, Tesla's going to have trouble going up against Volkswagen. Now the big boys are playing, aha. Well, what about when Tesla becomes the biggest player? It's a lot harder for the media to trash Tesla when there's a lot of Tesla customers saying, hey, wait a minute, that's not true. A lot of lies told about Tesla by the media that the general public accepts because they don't have any experience with Tesla cars. When Tesla sells a lot more cars to a lot more people, a lot more of the audience is going to be aware that Teslas are actually very good cars, and they're going to start pushing back, and it's going to be hard on the media to keep lying about Tesla. And from a Wall Street perspective, when Tesla becomes the big dog, then it becomes the smart play to buy stock in the big player on the market. That could actually lead to an overshoot where Tesla becomes worth more than what I'm saying. So $30,000 a share is not out of the question. $25,000, $30,000 a share is above where I think it's going to go in terms of what its actual value should be. But if the market overshoots, we might see $25,000 or $30,000 a share. If Robotaxi doesn't happen, but things otherwise go well, and we're looking at $10,000 a share, but with 19 million vehicles produced, they're the big dog, then you could see Wall Streeters saying, hey, this is the big dog, we got to give it a premium. And that $10,000 a share turns into $15,000 a share. There's huge upside in Tesla stock. Is it possible something goes wrong? Sure. It's really hard to come up with a story where Tesla is worth less than $3,000 a share in 2026. I think it's hard to come up with a story where Tesla is worth less than $5,000 a share in 2026. I find my story for the pessimistic version pretty much hard to believe. If you like this video, please check out my other videos about Tesla stock. Please check out the t-shirts, Tesla is the next Tesla, on elonbits.com. Also the stainless steel water bottle. Check out my book, Fair DUI, on Amazon. Support the channel on Patreon as well. And thank you so much for watching.